Hello dear friends, in these crazy times we live in, it was about time that experts raised their voices against one of the most controversial experiments to reduce solar radiation, but not never lose our joy of living and our sense of humor. Opinion piece. Criticism of solar blocking. It could alter the natural climate, the natural weather. Experts question the experiment. It would change the color of the sky to white. Plan to darken the sun to cool the planet. Effects of the reducing solar radiation ignored. Control the stratospheric disturbance experiments. Tons of calcium carbonate planned to be launched into a stratosphere. Free electric car for all residents of Gádor, Almeria. Scientific plan to stop mosquitoes from drinking human blood. Parrot Curro, famous for his songs, appears in Galicia, Spain. Psychic cat Achilles predicts saucer results in Russia. Intel enters global microchip manufacturing race. Steve Jobs' Mac OS X operating system turns 20 years old at Apple. Large Hadron Collider may change the laws of the universe. China, Russia, Turkey and Iran wants to create a new international currency. Gigantic ships runs around in Suez, Canada, blocking shipping traffic. Let's start. Experts are questioning the project supported by Mr. Gates that plans to launch millions of tons of chalk dust into the stratosphere to cool the Earth. The first stage of the initiative could be carried out in June this year. Several experts criticized the project called Controlled Stratospheric Perturbation Experiment, highlighting the danger involved. Sir David King of the University of Cambridge said that the consequences of the initiative could be catastrophic for the weather, and called for it not to be carried out. In addition, several experts believed that the successful implementation of the initiative will provide politicians with an excuse to stop working on reducing harmful emissions. Edinburgh University professor Stuart Hasseltine stated in this context that blocking solar radiation will not help to eliminate the main cause of the alleged global warming. According to the professor, mankind will have to release more and more dust if it doesn't work to solve the pollution problem, and the high concentration of the particles will change the color of the sky to white and lead to a rise in temperatures. It is like taking heroin. In quotes, you have to keep taking drugs for it to continue to have an effect, he stated. Launch. The first test of the project, which plans to launch millions of tons of non-toxic calcium carbonate powder or chalk dust into the stratosphere to block sunlight and thus counterattack the effects of alleged global warming, could be carried out next June, reports The Times. As part of the initiative, financially supported by the famous billionaire, a group of researchers from Harvard University will launch a large balloon near the Swedish city of Kiruna, and once it ascends to an altitude of just over 20 kilometers, will throw 2 kilograms of dust into the stratosphere. In this way, the specialists want to divert part of the solar radiation from reaching the Earth. In the first stage, the specialists want to analyze how the dust reacts when it comes into contact with the air, and so they will release a quantity of particles that will affect an area of only a few square kilometers without preventing the sun's rays from reaching the surface. Then, using computer models, they will be able to analyze what effect the initiative would have if carried out at large scale. Mars is hard. Mars is half the size of Earth, But now, would we get there? Every 2 years, there are a couple of weeks when the planet is closest to Earth, so the trip would only take 6 months to get there. However, the circumstances on the red planet are far from friendly. The atmospheric pressure is not suitable for human, and the radiation is little on the surface with no shelter. In quotes, we have a lot to do, a lot of computer-based analysis and work with scientists to try to understand what are the circumstances we will face, says Abiru Architecture Studio founder Alfredo Muñoz, adding that we have to face challenges that are very specific to Mars conditions, one of them being gravity, which is only 1/3 of the gravity on Earth. On the other hand, carbon dioxide and water can be obtained on the surface. Water is one of the big advantages that Mars offers. It helps to be able to get the right materials for construction. Basically, with water and carbon dioxide, we can generate carbon, and with carbon we can generate steel, says Muñoz. The architectural firm's plans to use exclusively martial materials for construction. Economy. China, Russia, Turkey and Iran want to create a new international currency. As Washington increases sanctions pressure on its geopolitical competitors and uses the US dollar as a tool to promote its political agenda, China, Russia, Turkey and Iran may need to come up with a new international currency to counter the hegemony of the dollar, a Turkish currency economist suggests. It's possible to create a new world currency. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov insisted during an interview on the need to look for alternatives to the dollar. The Russian Foreign Minister stated the need to reduce risks of sanctions by strengthening their technological independence, moving to settle in national currencies and in world currencies alternative to the dollar. Wall Street and big firms warned of a New York tax hike. A group of executives from 250 large companies, including JP Morgan, BlackRock, Pfizer, and News Corp, expressed concern Tuesday about the potential tax hike in New York State, arguing that it could discourage workers from returning to the big city and jeopardize its recovery. Asian stocks fall, dollar rises on flight to safety. Asian stocks touched a 2-week low on Wednesday. Oil weakened further and the dollar neared 4-month highs as blockades in Europe and possible US tax hikes hit risk appetite, leading to a flight to safety. Global stocks are highly overvalued. Buffett's global indicator, the ratio that measures the capitalization of all publicly traded companies on global GDP, hit a new all-time high at over 123%, signaling that global stocks are highly overvalued and could plummet in the coming months. Goldman Sachs will allow its employees to rest on Saturdays after complaints about 100 work weeks. There was a time when I wasn't eating, showering or doing anything but waking from morning until after midnight, says one of the company's employees. Goldman Sachs Investment Banking Group's CEO David Solomon said Sunday that he will strengthen the enforcement on the so-called Saturday rule, an official company rule aimed at preventing employees from working too much overtime and giving them at least 1 day off a week. More than 600 bitcoins go on sale in France's first cryptocurrency auction. The French government plans to sell more than 600 bitcoins in the first cryptocurrency auction organized in the country local media reported. According to the portal Numerama, the 611 bitcoins put up for sale had been commissioned by the French Agency for the Management and Recovery of Seized and confiscated assets. Most of these assets belonged to individuals suspected for committing cyber attack against the GitHub platform in 2019. Technology. Intel enters global race for microchip manufacturing, pledges $20 billion to its Arizona fab amid global semiconductor shortage. Plans to build a new foundry come amid a massive global shortage of key technologies. Excuse me. And growing rivalry between governments and companies amid ongoing trade and technology wars between Washington and Beijing. Intel's new CEO announced his plan to return in chip-making dominance. Investors on Wednesday cheered with rallies as Intel new CEO Pat Gelsinger announced an investment plan for the chipmaker to regain its dominant position after delays in next-generation developments and rumors that it would even abandon semiconductor manufacturing. Trump will create his own platform on social networks. The former president will again have a presence on social networks in 2 or 3 months, but this time he will do so by creating his own platform on the internet. This was announced by Jason Miller, one of the former president's top advisors, in a statement on Sunday to the Fox network. Leaked international documents revealed Facebook's secret rules. Facebook allows violent militia groups to be praised in certain situations, while tolerating calls for the death of public people, according to internal guidelines of the social network, cited Tuesday by The Guardian. The Mac OS X operating system, which marked Steve Jobs' return to Apple, turns 20 years old. This Wednesday marks 20 years since Apple launched the first public version of its Mac OS X operating system for its Mac computers. This software was not only important because it remained in force until 2020 with the launch of the Big Sur, but also because it marked the return of the company of its co-founder Steve Jobs. Policy. U.S. to maintain presence in Syria. The U.S. intends to maintain its presence in Syria to continue passing members of the Islamic State, which remains a threat. Pentagon spokesman John Kirby told a news conference Tuesday. Tina Turner retires from public life with emotional documentary. Tina Turner, 81, talks about her troubled past and life with post-traumatic stress disorder in the new documentary Tina, a film the soul and rock star says in the final act of her public life before she retires. Merkel cancelled Easter quarantine in Germany. The decision to tighten restrictive measures from April 1st to 5 during Easter and Passover in Germany was a mistake, German Chancellor Angela Merkel said. One of the 5 Britons will flee abroad. The latest figures on UK attitudes to international travel show that 20% of Britons still plan to go abroad even if their trip violates government restrictions and despite the threat of being fined £5,000. Mount Etna volcano fills the night again with rumbles and jets of lava. Mount Etna was active again in the early hours of March 24th. The volcano located at the east coast of Sicily, Italy, expelled lava from its southeast crater. Spain. Spain bans tourism between regions during Easter week. All Spanish communities except Madrid agreed to impose regional closures during Easter week and the San Jose long weekend. The first period that covers is from March 17 to 21st. The bridge of San Jose in the autonomies, in which the 19th is a holiday, and the second one from the 26th of this month until April 9th in all Spain, in the Holy Week. The curfew will be at 11 p.m. at the latest, and meetings of between 4 and 6 people in public spaces and of all inhabitants in private. Free electric car for all the residents of Gádor. The residents of this little village in Almeria are delighted with their new service, an electric car that they can use free of charge to do their shopping, go to the bank or to the doctor. The City Council of Gádor has launched a great initiative so that all its neighbors can use an electric car completely free of charge. By means of an application and respecting the shifts, the neighbors can request this electric vehicle to go to the bank, to the doctor, or to do the shopping, among other activities. The Spanish police arrested the highest responsible of Islam in Spain, Muhammad Ayman Albi, in the operation against the plot of terrorist financing to jihadist cells. The General Commissariat of Information suspected that Ayman, president of the Islamic Commission of Spain, could be linked to the plot. The Islamic Commission represents all Islamic communities vis-à-vis the administration. The Parrot Curro, famous for his songs, has appeared after 9 days of intense search thanks to the help of the neighbors of Alaracha in A Coruña. As if it were another member of the family, a resident of Ilaño, a small town in Alaracha, A Coruña, alerted the rest of the town about the disappearance of a Parrot Curro. He is a green Amazon parrot with a yellow and blue head. Given the affection they had for their pet, the owners didn't hesitate to ask for help on social networks and also through the local radio to help find the animal. Psychic cat Achilles invited to predict social results. Achilles, white Hermitage cat with blue eyes, started his career as an oracle in 2017 during the Confederation Cup. He predicted the results of St. Petersburg matches in the 2018 World Cup, has earned the reputation of a true oracle, and was loved by fans. Russia. Moscow and Beijing bring positions closer in the face of West's distancing. To build a more just, democratic and rational multipolar world order, it's necessary to respect the principles of openness, equality and de-ideologization in international relations. The Russian minister proposes in his joint statement with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Instead of defending themselves alone, the two powers are preparing to take decisive action. Ukraine punishes Crimea. Ukraine blocks the flow of water to the Crimean Peninsula to punish it for its allegiance to Russia. Kiev could face major problems linked to a drinking water deficit in 2050 due to pollution of its rivers. This is very worrying news for the country's 41 million inhabitants. South America. The Legionnaires of Christ reveal details of 27 priests who allegedly abused 170 minors. The cases apparently occurred in more than a dozen countries, including Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Venezuela, Spain, USA, Mexico, and Italy. The Legionaries of Christ have made known the identity of almost 30 priests accused of committing sexual abuse in 170 cases. A giant cargo ship runs aground in the Suez Channel and blocks maritime traffic. The Evergreen, a giant cargo ship with Panamanian flag, ran aground Tuesday morning in the Suez Canal, Egypt, completely blocking traffic in both directions on what is one of the most important maritime trade routes worldwide. Colombia is the most insecure country. Every half hour, a person has to leave their home because of the danger of death. The number of displacements tripled from January to March compared to the same period in 2020. In the first quarter of this year, there have been 30 massive displacements involving between 10 and 50 people, while in the first quarter of 2021 there were 9. Science. Scientific plan to stop mosquitoes from drinking human blood. A team of Russian and American scientists has harvested the genome of mosquitoes in order to stop these insects from drinking human blood or carrying the parasites that cause malaria. Penises are shrinking because of pollution, according to a scientific study. In case you needed yet another reason to worry about the climate crisis, the weather crisis, pollution has been found to be causing human penises to shrink. A leading epidemiologist and environmental scientist has published a book examining the relationship between the industrial chemicals and organ length. Dr. Shanna Schwann's book, Countdown, argues that our modern world is altering human reproductive development and threatening the future of our species. Chia is a superfood. Chia is considered a superfood because it has more omega-3 fatty acids than salmon, an enormity of antioxidants and minerals, a complete source of protein and more fiber than flaxseed. It also contains calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, iron, zinc, selenium, boron and copper, and on top of that is low in sodium. Supernova explodes. Japanese amateur astronomer Yuji Nakamura was lucky enough to witness the aftermath of the explosion of a star some 10,000 light years from Earth using only his trusty telescope. Nakamura observed the stellar explosion on March 18, 2021 using his 135mm lens and a 15 seconds exposure. He reported the magnitude 9.6 brightness to the National Astronomical Observatory of Japan, which deployed a series of powerful telescopes to make observations that confirmed that it was indeed a classical nova, which they named V1405 Gas. First image of the magnetic fields bounding a black hole. Nearly 2 years after showing the world the first image of a black hole, the scientific collaboration that made that historic feat possible has captured a new detail of the cosmic object, the magnetic fields enveloping the black hole's boundary. A cloud of dark matter appears to disturb a neighboring star cluster. Data from ESA Gaia mission have revealed evidence that the nearest star cluster to the Sun is being disrupted by the gravitational influence of a massive but invisible structure. Large Hadron Collider may change the laws of the universe. Physicists have discovered a potential flaw in a theory that explains how the building blocks of the universe behave. The Standard Model is currently the best theory for explaining how the world around us works. But we have also known for some time that the Standard Model is only a stepping stone to a more complete understanding of the cosmos. Now, an apparent and unexplained behavior of a subatomic particle called a quark background has exposed cracks in the foundations of this theory. Red alert. Don Carlos de Marbella said that absolutely everything has been completed for a currency reset and now the timing is in God's hands. A red alert warning how be easy to mark the beginning of the process. Through insane levels of fiat currency printing, continued economic blockades and disincentivization of real work. A perfect storm for a financial turnaround is being created. The coalition will issue a red flag warning for an accelerated transformation. We are already seeing skyrocketing food, fuel, housing and commodity prices in 2021, indicating that the value of the dollar is already collapsing by 20% or more. All the funds are in place, the agreements awarded, the financial activation codes were in the quantum system, and the Chinese elders are in the banking centers around the world to oversee the implementation of the currency reset. At some point, the military would initiate the Odin Project National Alert System by activating the new Starlink communication system to take over all media worldwide. Biblical situation. Mike Adams states in his March 23rd situation update that everything is getting biblical with plagues, demons, UFOs, cyborgs and invaders. In case you haven't noticed, events in the world are getting downright biblical. We now have a rash of plagues, mice and spiders in Australia, earthquakes, volcanoes and drought. John Ratcliffe has gone public with new information about UFOs, revealing that these flying craft are well known to the government and are powered by exotic technology that defies human understanding of the laws of physics. Expect many more revelations in UFO space throughout 2021. A medical journal called the Journal of Religion and Health has published a research paper that wonders where people diagnosed with schizophrenia might actually be possessed by demons. The so-called authority hallucinations they routinely experience might best be explained as Luciferian entities literally speaking to these people throughout their vulnerable neurology. But in today's society, these people are drugged with antipsychotic and other pharmaceuticals. Perhaps they need an exorcism instead. Perhaps the answer is God. Thanks a lot, dear friends, and thanks for your attention. Be happy.